Number 12. Okay, what is number 12? 2x squared. All right. So we know we got two problems with this one, right? Problem number one is I got a bad C, and problem number two is I got a leading coefficient. So as I look at this, I don't remember what I told y'all to do first. I think I told y'all to divide first. But I think that on this one, now that you've gotten a little more comfortable with completing the square, I think I'm going to move that C over first. Why am I going to do that before I divide? Exactly. 89 is not even. If I subtract the 89 from both sides, I end up with an even number. So it's going to make my division a little bit easier. So I have 2x squared. You want to stick your head just at that door, just make sure they're okay. All right, negative 87 minus 89 is what? Yes? Now, notice I left my hole there, and that's out of habit, but I'm going to divide everybody by 2, and I end up with x squared minus 10x equals negative 88. I need a good C. What shall my good C be? 10 over 2 squared is, in fact, 25, not 100, right? Plus 25, plus 25. You got to cut it in half first and then square it. All right, how does it factor? X minus 5 squared equals, what's negative 88 plus 25? Not a perfect square, but that is A-okay. I'm going to square root. What happens when I have a negative under the radical? I, that's right, I. So I have plus or minus I, root 63, and I can do one more thing. Split it up, 9 and 7. So I have x minus 5 equals plus or minus, what's the square root of 9? 3. So I have 3i root 7. Now add the 5. So it's 5 plus or minus 3i root 7. A perfectly acceptable complex solution. Why is it complex? Real number and an imaginary number. That's exactly right. So make sure you got that right. What else? I got to get mine right. Okay, which one did y'all say? I'm sorry. 8. Can you give it to me? 3. So the bad C's already moved over. I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to take care of that leading coefficient in the front, dividing everything. Oh, gross. X squared plus 14 over 5x equals 3 over 5. I need a good C, but because I'm a fraction, I'm not going to divide by 2. Instead, I'm going to multiply by what? 1/2. Good job. 14/5 times 1/2 squared. 14/10. I'm going to clean that up a little bit before I square it. 7/5 squared, which would be 49 over 25. And it's going to go on both sides. 49 over 25, 49 over 25. Factor the left, what does it look like? There you go. Squared equals, how did you get that? Exactly. Good job. Yeah. It's always a possibility. I do have them. I'll flash them up in just a second. I actually forgot. Yeah, you can shut the door now. Thank you. I actually forgot to run your quiz today. So, you were supposed to. You were supposed to. I got caught up with tan lines and calculus. All right, x plus 7/5 squared equals, we said 64/25. Square root both sides. Nice, 64 and 25 are both perfect squares, so I get x plus 7/5 equals, good job, 8/5. I'm going to move the 7/5 over, negative 7/5 plus or minus 8/5. For this one, I can combine this, okay? And that's what I want you to do, especially since they're common denominators like this. So I'm going to have one answer would be negative 7/5 plus 8/5, and one would be negative 7/5 minus 8/5. 1/5, negative 15. That's right. I had to check behind you a second, Miguel, but you're right. With me? Uh-oh. Yeah. Let me flash the, so there's 11. I'm going backwards. Negative 1 plus or minus 6i. Number 9, 4 plus or minus 2√3. Good. 7, 3/2 of negative 1. 5 is negative 3 and 5. 3 is negative 16 and 6. And then 1 is 5 and negative 9. What other one do I need to work? 2? Tell me what it is. 8. 80. 8. That's right. 8, just 8. 80. Oh. I couldn't get the E on the end of it. I'm sorry. Okay. This is square dance now. Yes, right? Square root of x squared, square root of 36, 6x doubled is 12x, so I can factor it as is. So it factors as x minus 6 squared equals 80. Square root both sides. Plus or minus, now what's the biggest perfect square I can divide 80 by? I think it's, is it 16? 16 and 5, what's the square root of 16? 4, so I got 4 times the square root of 5. Right? So I got square root of 80, 16, and 5. So now, yep, the plus or minus, I add the 6 to both sides. I have 6 plus or minus 4 root. Very good? All right, let's take a brain break now instead of after the lesson, because from Algebra 1, you have probably done quadratic formula before. If you have not, do not fear. It's not hard. It's just tedious and long, and you have to follow the order of operations. Outside of that, it's not a hard concept. So, quadratic formula. Now, we've talked, remember this whole chapter has been all about how to solve quadratics, right? So, what the quadratic formula is, and if anybody's interested, I could actually show you how it derives. I'm very proud of it. But it takes any quadratic in standard form and equal to 0, and it completes the square the same way we complete the square. It moves the bad C, it divides by A, half of B squared. If you go through all that and then you solve for x, you'll have the quadratic formula. So the point that I'm getting to is when nothing else works, you can't factor and solve, you can't sad math your way out of it, nothing works, quadratic formula always, always, always works. But it's a last resort for us because it takes the longest, and there's the most room to mess up for things. So before you use it, a couple of stipulations. First, your equation has to equal 0. It doesn't matter if your first leading coefficient is positive or negative like it does when you're fat. None of that matters. It just has to equal 0. Okay? Be able to identify your A, your B, and your C. Remember, those are coefficients. They do not include the X. Past that, it's just a formula. And this formula you have to memorize. And that's the point of the extra credit song we're going to talk about. My calculus kids can still sing their song that they did for me in Algebra 2 years ago. So those that did it anyway. A lot of people just remember it. All right. X equals, because remember I'm solving for X. That's the whole goal. What does X equal? No, I'm saying, no, y'all, I'm saying, what does, that's what we're looking for, is what does X equal? No, yeah, it was a rhetorical question. Thank you. X equals, everybody went 0. Opposite B. Again, with the opposite B, it says negative B, but it's opposite B because if it starts out negative, then it's going to turn positive. So I always say opposite B. Opposite B, plus or minus the square root. B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. It looks a lot worse than it is.
It's a lot worse than it looks.
No, it's not. Those are... Okay.
Nobody likes it.
The most important thing here is the order in which you simplify, okay? Notice that everything is divided by 2A, all right? So I'm going to give you some steps that are going to make the most sense to simplify this. First thing you want to do is work under the radical first. Make sure that's the first thing you simplify. Then you can combine the top with it if it's combinable. It may not be combinable. Okay. Then we can simplify with the denominator. So make sure, I guess the most important thing I'm getting to here is make sure you simplify under the radical before you do anything else. That's the most important. That part that's under the radical is called something special. It's called the discriminant. And we're going to talk about what that means and how we use it. But right now, just know that it's called the discriminant. It does not include the radical. It's just what's under the radical. So just the b squared minus 4ac. All right, let's run through an example. We'll just do your first one together. Or, yeah, we'll do it first. Or pick one. Pick one from your homework you want me to do. All. So pick one you want me to do. Just all. All. Give me one. Give me one. Give me one. Number 1, you sure?
Well, no, let's do 9. I'm sorry.
9 was the one I was looking at.
Yeah, 9. No, 9. I'm sorry.
7x squared. I generally only have to do one of these in an honors class, and you go, oh, it's just, but if you need me to do another one past this, I will, so let me know. But I do have to talk about the discriminant for a minute whenever I finish. All right, first thing is it has to equal what? 0. So move everything to one side. Does it matter what I move where? No, just move whatever's easiest for you. In this case, I'm going to move the 5 and the negative 2x because there's less there. That's right. Make sure you're writing this on your homework sheet so you don't have to redo it tonight. All right, I'm going to move the 5 and the 2x. Does it confuse anybody if I move them at the same time? Okay, I have 0 on the right side. That was the goal. The left side is now 7x squared minus 8x plus 4 equals 0. All right, it equals 0. I'm good to go. I need my A, my B, and my C. What is it? A is 7, B is negative 8, and C is 4. Everybody good? Plugging in. It's plug and chug from here. That's it. Plug and chug. Opposite B, so 8 plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c, the whole thing. You have to be neat with this, Dozier. 2a. Keep everything together where it goes. It's not just the radical that's divided by the 2a, it's the whole entire thing. So let's work under the radical first. It won't give you an exact answer, no. In Desmos, maybe. But you don't have Desmos. All right. 64. He didn't say anything. 112. Now all your other rules come into play here, okay? Imaginary numbers, simplifying radicals, all that good stuff comes into play. All right, 64 minus 112, negative 48. So I have 8 plus or minus square root negative 48. I'm going to take it just one step at a time as we go here. Okay. Now nothing new here. Start simplifying where you can. Can I break that radical down? Because clearly I can't combine these yet. I may not even be able to. How about the square root of 48? I know I'm going to have the I out there. 16 and 4? 16 and 3. 16 and 3. It's okay. Bless you.
Wait a second.
So this is...
Wait.
Okay. Yes. Okay, but I can simplify this some. Now be very careful, and I'm going to say this, listen very closely. You cannot simplify, even if this number under the radical were an even number, I can't divide this and this. You can divide the numbers out front by a common factor, but you can't do what's under the radical, okay? So stay outside only. So I can divide them all by 2. That's exactly right. So simplified, this could look like 4 plus or minus 2i. The root 3 stays, don't mess with it, over 7. So if you need to simplify one of these are the pieces you're looking to divide something by a common factor, okay? Never under the radical. Never. That's the answer. That's what you would get if you completed the square like we were doing before. Ask me again. Yes. Unless it says solve by factoring. So we're going to spend some time tomorrow talking about how to determine what the best method is to solve, and what you need is the easiest to get you to the solution. Say again? It's 1. It's 1. Do y'all need me to do another one? Yeah? Okay, one more. I want you to notice something here. Remember we talked about that discriminant, or I told you what the discriminant was, I didn't tell you what it did? What is the discriminant of this problem while I'm here? What is it though? What's the value of the discriminant here? Look, what is it? Keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Well, close, but almost, but not quite. All right, you said 12. Oh, 10. 10's a good one. Sorry, Dozier, you got voted out. Now, if I was not told which way to solve this, Okay, but if I wasn't told what way, what would you do? This is what y'all missed on your quiz. So I have, when there's just one x in the problem, I undo everything, right? I stack that. I could subtract 21, divide by -12, and take the square root. But
It's a quadratic formula.
Quadratic formula. So Wyatt, yes, you are correct. I need to put a 0x in the middle. If the whole term is missing, it's 0. If the b is missing, like it's just an x. You know what I'm saying? I might have misunderstood. So if it was 12x squared plus x minus 5, it would be 1. All right, what is a? -12. What's b? What's c? Try to plug this one in and see what you get. Oh. Again? I don't confiscate phones at this age. I think you should be mature enough to handle it. It places the responsibility on you. Okay, let's see, did y'all finish it? Oh, it is a big number, but it's a positive number. Well, you got minus a negative. What's the perfect square it's divisible by? A 36 goes in, but there's got to be something bigger. 144. So 12 root 7 over -24.
You can divide it by 12.
You can divide it by 12. You're exactly right. So plus or minus root 7 over 12. Oh! Sorry, it's 2. It's 2. It's 2. Divided by 12. Ah! A 1 what? You don't have to put it, and you can put it. Since I have to put that plus or minus on the top, I would probably keep it with the 2 there on the bottom. What's the discriminant here? $1,008. Why does that? I'm so glad you asked. You led right up to the last part of the lesson. Thank you for that. Why does that matter? That matters because instead of doing the entire quadratic formula, I can do just the discriminant, and it tells me something very important. It tells me how many solutions and what type of solutions I'm going to have. So look back at this one. This was a negative number, right? So if my discriminant, which is, remember, b squared minus 4ac, if it's negative, that tells me that I have 2 imaginary solutions. Is that what happened in my first example? They're definitely imaginary. How do I know there's 2 of them? Plus or minus, that gives me 2 solutions. What do you think happens if the discriminant is positive? 2, I'm going to call them real solutions. Or normal solutions. Can you think of any other scenario that I could have as a discriminant? Think about the value, though. I said if it's positive or if it's negative. Is there another situation that could occur? 0. What do you think happens if your discriminant is 0? Think no? Let's look at this equation. Well, if this whole thing was 0, what's the square root of 0? 0. You don't. So you end up with how many solutions? 1 solution. Is it an imaginary number? It can't possibly be. There's no radical in there anymore. So it's 1 real solution. Okay. So that's the point of the discriminant. It's a really easy concept, just telling us what happens there. Okay. You'll have a question or two that might say, what is the discriminant and what does it tell us about the solution? And you'll just do b squared minus 4ac, and then if it's negative, you'll say there's 2 real solutions. 2 imaginary solutions. Positive, there's 2 real. We'll practice with it. Okay.